This is the remix.
The Life of Dad Show.
Remix.
What up, everybody? Art Eddie here for the Life of Dad Show Remix. Here in Life of Dad Show Remix, we've taken past guests that we've had on the Life of Dad Show and just showcased their thoughts on fatherhood. This week, we have three great dads who made life a little bit easier for us as parents because they all have created shows on the Disney Channel, whether it's Sascha Paladino, Ford Riley, or Tom Warburton. We talked to them about the shows that they created, but in this interview, you're going to hear just their thoughts on fatherhood. If you want to listen to the entire interviews, make sure you download the Life of Dad Show podcast wherever you listen. Let's get into the Life of Dad Show remix with Sascha Paladino, Tom Warburton, and Ford Riley. Enjoy. Hey everybody, it's Art Eddie and Tom Riles for the Life of Dad Show, and we are very happy to have Sascha Paladino. Thanks for taking the time, Sascha. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys for having me.
What's your work-family balance like at this point? Is it challenging because you're in, full production mode now?
That's a great question. It is challenging. I bring my boys to school in the morning, to preschool, and then head straight to work, and then I'm at work usually till 7 or 8. If I'm lucky, sometimes later. But, it puts a lot on my wife to have to do dinner and get them ready at night. And it's hard. It's I don't know if there is a perfect balance.
Well
but,
said.
I feel lucky that I have a job where I get to show things that I'm working on to my kids. And, sometimes they get to come into the office and draw on the computers, on the computer screens and help the artists. I mean, not really help them, but, think they're helping them. I feel lucky that I'm able to include my kids in my work. I know that's not always the case. The most important thing to me is when I go home at night and on the weekends that I turn off the computer and turn off the phone. It's hard to do when everyone's, asking you questions and need something from you. It's just so clear when you don't give kids your full attention, and when you're at dinner and an email comes in and you check it, they know that you're not there 100%. And I've done it. And they're like, Dad, why aren't you looking at me? It breaks my heart, and it's like I'm hoping that this show works and successful and that a lot of kids connect with it. But if I can't connect with my own kids, then why am I doing it? So, it's trying to find that right balance.
Well said, man. 2 more questions on fatherhood before we go to the Life of Dad Quick 5, because we know you're a busy guy. What are some of the morals you look to instill in your children as they grow up?
Oh, that's a thing I've thought about a lot, and I'm lucky because I get to think about that every day when I'm making, coming up with stories for the show. The one thing that's really important to me is the idea of being open to other cultures, being really open-minded about, meeting different kinds of people who are different than us. And that's something I've tried to work into the show, the idea that Miles and his family are on this intergalactic adventure, and they're making contact with other alien cultures that are really different from them. And how do you do that? There might not always be open as you are, and how do you what's the best way to navigate that? So that's something that's really important to me and how my kids are developing, and that I'm trying to work into the show as well.
Nice.
Excellent. And what advice do you have for new dads out there? So you're 5 years into the wonderful times but tough times at the same point.
Yeah.
Looking back, any advice you want to throw at new guys out there just getting into the game?
I'd say don't freak out like I did, if you can, but it probably doesn't matter because I'm sure there's a lot of freaking out happening. I'd say, it's important to make sure you have a good balance of time for yourself and time for you and your partner to be together, so that it's not all about the kid. I think you're a better parent when you can step away for a little while from your kid and then go back and just be 100% there.
Nice. Well said. Appreciate you talking about fatherhood and, of course, your great show, Miles from Tomorrowland. Of course, we're going to put links up for people to check it out at Life of Dad. Now we got the Life of Dad Quick 5. What is your favorite family movie you guys like to watch together?
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Nice. Excellent. Well done. Do you guys have a favorite song, or do your kids, besides obviously the opening theme from Miles from Tomorrowland?
Well, they hear the Miles from Tomorrowland theme song. They've probably heard about 700 times, so that has to be their favorite song if they don't have a choice. Yeah.
Nice. Like you said, you're a busy guy, but when you do have downtime with your family, what would be the perfect family vacation?
Perfect family vacation would be going to a faraway place, as I said, in sort of a new culture and exploring that new culture together.
Excellent. And kind of going on the cartoon side of things, what was your favorite cartoon when you were growing up?
My favorite cartoon was probably the Jetsons, which won't come as a surprise.
I see no correlation with the show you're making then.
Not at all, yeah.
And lastly, ever think about using your own voice for maybe not this animated series, but just any animated series in general?
I would love to. I actually went to high school of performing arts, fame school, so I did study acting when I was a kid. I've done one voice on a cartoon. The first show I worked on was Blue's Clues, and I actually played a nurse. I played a male nurse named Nurse Kenny on that show, and that's my one voiceover claim to fame. On Blue's Clues episode, Blue Goes to the Doctor. I am the nurse.
Nice. Sascha, thanks so much for taking the time. People, make sure you check out Miles from Tomorrowland on Disney. Continued success with the show and everything you're doing, and we definitely love your take on fatherhood.
Thank you guys so much. I love your blog and your podcast, and I appreciate it.
All right, man. You take care now, okay?
You too, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, Sascha.
Hey everyone, Art Eddie here for the Life of Dad show, and on the line I'm very happy to have executive producer of Disney Junior's reimagined show, The Muppet Babies, Tom Warburton. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me, Tom. How you doing, sir?
Good, man. How's it going?
Really good, man. When you had that magic news of like you're going to be a parent for the first time, you're going to be a father, talk about like what was going through your mind.
When I was going to be a father, wow. I mean, a lot of people say like, yeah, well, you're never ready to have kids. Mm-hmm. Like if you talk about like, well, we're waiting to have kids, we're waiting to be ready. I'm like, you're never ready. It's like a completely life-changing thing, for better and for worse and for all that. But like, I remember just being like, I was excited. And every time I would walk by the nursery where the crib was, I would get all sort of like, oh my gosh, there's gonna be babies there soon. But then it's overwhelming. I got two boys, 10 and 13. Their energy can power the Eastern Seaboard. And what I like about boys is they're relatively easy. They're either tired, hungry, or something isn't fair, and that's it. Like they're just wrecking machines who just swoop in. Like they're like animals from Muppet Babies. They're just forces of nature that just exist to cause chaos and craziness, and that's what I love. And a lot of I keep sketchbooks, and I'm always writing down things they do, and they make it into shows. Like for instance, my youngest one is always in the backyard fighting invisible bad guys. We just look outside and he's out there. He has this like kid-sized lacrosse stick, which is like his sword. He puts it down the back of his shirt, and he's out there fighting bad guys. And we did an episode with Gonzo, like saying, "Look out, invisible bad guys! Here, like I'm here to defeat you." You take those things from your kids and you put them into your work, and that's what's great about animation. I can put them into my work. I don't know how you put your work, your crazy stories into accounting, but I'm sure someone does.
No, I agree. When I started working here at Life of Dad, like kids are your muses, and it's great that you have this like just unlimited resource of like, yeah, they did this. All right, I'm making a blog, or I'm going to put this in the show. So that's great. And another thing that you do, obviously, like, you're an animator, producer, and all that, writer and designer. I love the fact that you have these illustrated lunch bags you've been creating for your kids, and people can check it out on your Instagram over at lunch_at_Warburton Labs. And of course, we'll put up links for people to check you out on social media. But talk a little bit about what inspired you to start that up.
Well, like making lunches every day is kind of a drag. Like it's like, what am I going to make for lunch now? And I wanted something to kind of just do something that the boys would like, that they thought would be fun, and also something for me, like just a way to flex your creative muscle, like the same way a comic strip artist has to come up with a new gag cartoon every day. Yeah. Sounds impossible. But like my thing is like I need to come up with a lunch bag idea every day, and that's sort of like sometimes I have no idea what I'm going to do, and I think of something at the last minute. Other times I've got like a week in my head of what I want to do. But really, it's just like when someone says like, "Oh, I'm out of ideas," I'm like, "No, you're not. You just don't. You just have to do them. You just have to get out there and do it." Like when my head writer on Kids Next Door, Mo Willems, who's a big famous picture book author now, when someone would say that we had to come up with a big, super huge story every week, and when someone would say to him, "What if you don't have any ideas?" and Mo's answer was, "I have a mortgage." There's no such thing as like, "Oh, I don't feel creative today." Guess what? If you're not creative, you're fired. And that's what I like about these lunch bags. It's coming up with an idea every day, and they're not. Some days I'm like, "Oh, that drawing is horrible," but it's just getting it out there and just getting the idea out.
Nice. And it's at, people can check it out at lunch_at_Warburton Labs, and they're great. And I love the designs. So great job on that. Two more questions before I hit you up with the Life of Dad Quick 5. What are some of the core values that you look to instill into your kids as they're growing up?
One of them is, like I was just saying, being creative with everything. Like I try to show them, don't just do stuff to get it done. Do it in an interesting way, like, and make it more interesting. You don't like, now that always doesnn't work, with, it's math homework, you've got to do that exactly this way. But like, if they're doing an art project or a poster for school, think of a different way to do it. Think about a fun way to do it. So my wife is also very creative. She's a personal stylist, and we're always trying to instill in them, like, do things differently, do things, have fun doing it. Some other things are just basic moral values of just like, do be nice to everyone. You never know what this person is, your relationship is going to be with them down the road. Just be nice. It's not hard. Yeah. And if they're not nice, then, go a different way. You don't need that person. So trying to instill that all the time, and just hard work. I have a lot of drive, and I didn't really have my creative drive till maybe college. And I'm trying to show them by, that like all the hard work gets you places. And that's hard to get to younger kids, but I think another dad told me, you tell them by showing them. And they say, they see you every day doing those lunch bags. They see you how hard you work at work every day. Just keep doing that and it'll sink in. Same way, like when you're, I'm sure with your kids, you spend forever telling them, say thank you, say please, thank you. And they don't do it. And then and you're like, gosh, how many times do I have to tell you? Just say thank you. And then you start hearing from other families, like, your kids are so polite. And you're like, no, mine's the blonde one. and then you find out, like, it was sinking in. Yeah. So that's one of the things I love when that friend told me, just show them by doing it.
Yeah. And it's funny, you kind of mentioned, like, no, that my son's the blonde one. It is funny too, because people, like, friends of parents of my daughter's friends, be like, oh, they're so well behaved and all that stuff. I'm like, all right, great. I'd rather them kind of maybe act up for me than other parents if they're
exactly.
The person's out. So, like, great. You kind of gave some advice with the different response you had for the fatherhood questions. But my last questions before the Life of Dad Quick 5 is, for new dads listening, or for dads that are going to be dads soon, if there's one big piece of advice you'd give to new dads, what would it be?
Oof, let me think about that. New dads, just be prepared to run around like a maniac. Like, you can't multitask with a baby. Like, saying like, I'm going to work while I'm watching the baby usually doesn't work. Like, unless you have a good sleeper. Like, we didn't, our first one was not a good sleeper. He slept for 10 minutes at a time. So I would always be like, yeah, maybe I'll write this episode while I'm watching the baby. Nope, didn't work. So be prepared to know that multitasking might not work with a baby. That's probably my biggest advice.
Well said there. Appreciate you sharing that. Now I got the Life of Dad Quick 5. Favorite family movie right now in the household for you guys is what?
Favorite family movie? Oh, I mean, the Star Wars movies are a comfort food. That's whenever the boys don't know what to watch, like, we sit down and watch one of the Star Wars, one of the first original 3 usually. Nice. But those are sort of the comfort food. Lately we've been sharing a lot of comedies with them too. But they're like older comedies, which aren't always appropriate as we remember them.
Yes. Yep.
Like, you think, like, Goonies, like, you think, like, that movie's harmless, and then every time, I forget who it is, River Phoenix or someone, every time he comes on, he has all these foul-mouthed words, and we're like, oh no, I didn't remember that.
Yeah. Because as a kid, you probably don't, at the time, you kind of glaze over it, you really don't care. But then, like,
right,
because
you didn't know what was happening.
Yeah, and, like, as parents were like, oh, and they're like, what? And they're like, kids will zero in and be like, oh, they said a bad word. So that's a bad word, right? You can't say, no, you can't say that word. Okay, great. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Favorite song or favorite band you guys like to listen to is what?
My favorite band is The Who. They've been suffering through hearing that in the car all the time. But they like it, but I don't think they would ever turn it on. They just listen to a lot more pop stuff now, and I can't even name most of it. But I know there was one album when they were really young, Wilco, Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, which there was a song called I Can't Stand It, that they both loved whenever it came on in the car. And still to this day, when that comes on, it's like, you can see them, it was burned into their memory at an early age.
Nice. Describe the perfect family vacation. Where would it be?
I think our family loves just going to a beach or like a hotel with a pool and hanging out. We just went on, and this I know this sounds like Disney indoctrination and stuff, but I went to do a Muppet Babies presentation aboard the Disney Dream, and I was able to bring the family, and we had a blast. We had never been on a cruise before, and it was super fun stopping off in Nassau and in Castaway Cay, which is like Disney's island. That was really super fun. That was like a really great vacation for us. But usually we just love going to a beach. I know these are fast five, and I'm slowing down the fast five.
No, it's all good, man. I love these responses. Favorite animated series you loved as a kid was?
Oh gosh, how do I name one? I mean, Warner Brothers cartoons were my favorites.
Nice.
I mean, I just love those. Yep.
Okay, putting you on the spot. Last one. Who was your favorite Muppet?
Well, that's kind of like saying who's your favorite child.
Yeah.
Like I can't name one. I can't name one. There's a piece of all of them that I love. I can't just name one. And even Summer, who's new, like I accept her as like one of the Muppets. So I can't name just one, or they'll get mad at me.
I appreciate that answer. People, make sure you follow Tom on Twitter at Mr. Warburton and his Instagram lunch at Warburton Labs, and make sure you check out Muppet Babies on Disney Junior. It's a great family series that you can check out with your kids. You're going to love it. Continued success with everything you got going on in the future, Tom.
Thanks, Art. That was really fun. Talk to you soon.
Yep. Bye. Hey everybody, it's Art Eddy, and on the line I'm very happy to have Ford Riley. He is the executive producer of Disney Junior's new show, The Lion Guard. Thanks for taking the time today, sir. How you doing?
Absolutely. I'm doing great, Art. How are you?
Doing really well. Here at Life of Dad, we love to get everybody's take on fatherhood. For you, what are some of the core values you look to instill into your kids? You have 2 kids, correct?
Yes.
What are some of the values you look to instill into them as they grow up?
Well, certainly responsibility is a big thing that, you deal with. I think lifelong as a parent, as a father, trying to instill a sense of responsibility, a sense of, ownership of your own actions, good judgment, which entails a whole lot of things, respect for people's differences. That's something that's big with us. Those 2 are like sort of the really core values that, I work with. And then, from that, it entails all sorts of other things beyond that. And I think that plays in when, you're writing, or at least when I'm writing, for children's animation. It's something that, I want to kind of have present in the shows as well.
Yeah, you definitely do. Thanks for sharing that. And I know that your kids are probably fans of the show, but also, too, reading up on, some backstory on the show, The Lion Guard, your son actually gave you some inspiration, right, for the show?
Yes. Well, I've got a daughter and a son. My daughter's the oldest. My son is the youngest. Kind of like Kiara and Kion, I have to admit. Yeah, in developing the Lion Guard, obviously Kiara was established in Lion King 2. And, okay, if we're going to have, the boy character, let's let him be the second born. Let him be the youngest because, usually the younger of 2 never gets to be the hero. It's kind of the comedy relief or, the whiny old younger brother. I want this show to be about, the younger brother who gets to be a hero too. And that's about as far as I got. I'm standing in my kitchen thinking, okay, what am I going to pitch to Disney about, expanding the Lion King universe? And my son comes home from the park. And every Thursday, he and his buddies play this sort of superhero game in the park. And he's telling me about, the adventures that he's had with, imaginary adventures he had with his buddies. And then that's when it hits me. It's like, oh, well, that's what I do with expanding the Lion King world. We put superheroes in the Pride Lands, like the Avengers meets the Lion King and call it the Lion Guard. And honestly, like that evening, the whole show kind of took shape. I, knew the 5 characters, their qualities, the fiercest, bravest, fastest, strongest, keenest of sight, okay, and they're all going to be different animals because, it's like we want it to be diverse. And, and the next morning called up Emily Hart at Disney Junior and said, one time come in and pitch it. So, he really did inspire it. And what's funny is that before I pitched it to Disney Junior, I pitched it to my son. And, he was 8 years old. And, he kind of listened to it. And he's like, yeah, that's cool, Dad. And then he went upstairs to his room. Later that evening, I went up, checked in on him, and he had pulled out all these little plastic animal figures. And I'm like, what are you doing, guy? He's like, oh, I'm playing Lion Guard. Oh. And here's the thing. at that time, he hadn't seen the Lion King film. All he knew was this idea of this group of animals defending the Pride Lands, whatever that is, and, upholding the circle of life. So it's like, okay, well, if it's resonating with him on just, like a verbal pitch, I think I've got something,
Oh, I love that story from top to bottom, man. That is fantastic. Oh, that is great. And it's great how you can combine your role as a dad and just family and ingrain it so well with your work. And then, I mean, that's your target audience. And, if your son's going to dig the show, it's like, yeah, it's a no-brainer. This is definitely a win-win. So thanks for sharing that. That's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
My last question before we get into the Life of Dad Quick 5 is what advice, because we have a bunch of new dads listening to this show, what are some of what piece of advice would you have for new dads out there listening?
Well, it's a piece of advice, actually, that the doctor that delivered both of my kids gave to me when my daughter was first born. It's a bit silly, but it's two things, really. One was, whatever you love to do, include your kid with that. And my wife and I love to travel, and he said, well, don't stop traveling. Take your kid with you and let them learn your love of, whatever it is you do. And, because then they're going to grow up and it's just going to be a natural part of their lives. It's not like, you have to stop doing what you love, because now you've got a kid.
Yeah.
And the other piece of advice that he gave to us was, don't buy them anything unless they ask for it. Which I've got to say is really, really good advice. I mean, it's, it's a little, not as broad, but, yeah.
Oh, first of all, the first one is fantastic. And it's funny, too, like, with my kids, they'll sometimes see me editing a podcast or an interview or whatever, and they're like, oh, what are you doing? I explain what I do. And now, like, my daughter's like, oh, they'll be doing something with, like, they'll borrow my headphones and a microphone. Like, what are you doing? Like, oh, I'm making my own podcast. I'm like, okay, nice. So I totally agree with that. Like, embrace your passion, share them with your kids. And then the second one, that is so true, because sometimes we kind of inundate, our kids with items and maybe not the moments of spending time. Like, oh, hey, you want this video game or you want this set of, new toys or whatever. But that is perfect. Those two are great pieces of advice. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, now we're going to finish it off with the Life of Dad Quick 5. What is your favorite family movie that you guys like to watch together right now? Because it changes. Because, like, again, I have two daughters, 7 and 5, and, one, it could be Frozen, then it could be, Lion King, or, like, obviously The Lion Guard's a show, so we'll watch that. But, like, for movies, what's the movie of choice right now for your kids?
Oh, man, right now it's Guardians of the Galaxy.
Nice.
Yeah, we've kind of been this past holiday. We've been kind of on a Marvel binge, and that's the one that seems to keep coming up.
Nice.
That, and we go to like Captain America sometimes and the Avengers, but Guardians of the Galaxy right now.
Nice, very cool. Love that. Do you guys have a favorite family song right now you guys like to dance to as a family? Like maybe it comes on the iPhone or iPad, and your kids start dancing, and you and your wife kind of join in.
Oh man, that's a good question. This is going to sound awfully self-serving, but right now the kids are all singing stuff from the Lion Guard.
Nice, hey!
Because they've been hearing it for years now, and now that like the album is out, and they kind of like sing it to themselves as they're just kind of like walking around like and so, which is a good and bad thing. I can never escape my work.
But yeah, I think it's awesome though. What you do is definitely family friendly, and I think that's perfect. And it also shows that they like what you're doing too, as as kids. They're like, hey, this is cool what Dad's doing. So that must be kind of a nice pat on the back for you though too, right?
Yeah. Well, I know I'm hitting my the target audience if the kids are singing songs. It's like, okay, well that one worked.
Nice. Describe the perfect family vacation.
Ooh. We actually had a really perfect family vacation, and I don't think that we can ever top it. In 2012, we went to the London Olympics.
Oh, wow.
And I've got to say, it was perfect. It was, sort of the ultimate dream vacation, so like we've had it. We were really fortunate to get tickets to the women's individual all-around competition. We got to see Gabby Douglas win the gold medal. Oh. So, like, nothing will ever top that.
Nice. Very cool. Last two were kind of work related. For you, I think you kind of mentioned some things when you were a kid and you were drawn, but like, what was your favorite cartoon growing up?
Ooh, well, it depends at what age I was. In grade school, throughout all of my life, a bit of an anime buff.
Okay.
Speed Racer and Star Blazers,
Nice.
Space Battle Fortress Yamato. In grade school. Those were like my two favorite TV shows. And then middle school, Robotech, which is sort of an amalgamation of Macross, Southern Cross, and Mosquito, was something that was still influential, I think, to me today. Obviously I watched a lot of cartoons. I love the Disney classic stuff and the Warner Brothers stuff, but for some reason it was sort of the big story arcs of the Japanese anime that really interest me.
Yeah, I love it. That's a cool answer right there. And lastly, for you, you probably always on the look for a new voice or a voice for like a certain character. Who is the next actor that you would love to work with an animated series? Like, is there one voice like I would love to work with that actor?
Michael Palin. I'm going to admit this. I've created a couple characters where it was like, man, if we could get Michael Palin to do this voice, and it's never ever worked out. He's a busy guy, and he's over in England, so it's never worked out. But man, if someday I could get Michael Palin to do a voice, I would just be so psyched.
Nice. Love it. I got to say, Ford, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about The Lion Guard. Continued success with that show. It's been great talking to you also about fatherhood. Loved your pieces of advice for the new dads out there, and it was a real pleasure talking with you.
Well, great talking with you, Art, and good luck to you, and thank you so much for watching.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what's coming up next in The Lion Guard. But again, continued success with everything you're doing.
Okay, cool. Right. Thank you so much.
Yep, you take care now.
Okay,
all right,
bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the Life of Dad show. You know where to find us, lifeofdad.com, and on Twitter and Facebook.